Paul Pierce. I'm the producing artistic director of the Springer Opera House. This is my 34th season as director of the Springer. I came here in 1988. I was young, thin, and had hair back then. I sort of oversee everything. Half of it is the administrative part of it, overseeing all of the operations, and the other half is artistic and educational. Although I'm very lucky that I have a fantastic staff, particularly our managing director, Danielle Varner, who runs the day-to-day. You know, the Springer Opera House is a producing theater, so we build shows from the ground up. We decide which shows we're going to do. We get licenses with the publishing companies, and then we cast them, and they build scenery and costumes, properties, have lighting designs, and we direct and stage these shows really from the ground up. So it's not like there are shows coming in from out of town. They are built and produced right here on this site. The thing I love about it is storytelling. I'm a natural storyteller, I guess, have been and come from a storytelling family. Stories are what give communities and families identities. We are who we are based on the stories we tell. A lot of shows that we've done over the years have been great dramatic literature pieces like To Kill a Mockingbird, or what we call the Scottish play. We can't say the name of Shakespeare's Scottish play out loud. It's a tradition in the theater, of Mice and Men. Lots of different, Romeo and Juliet. Those are plays. We also do big musicals as well, like The Wizard of Oz that's coming up next month, Ragtime, big Broadway shows, and sometimes small shows that we do, like musical reviews. California Dreamin' was about the music of the late 60s and early 70s coming out of California. We just do a little bit of everything. Musicals, drama, comedy, and children's theater productions. It's hard to say what my favorite is. My favorite is the play that I'm doing right now. And that's tended to be the case for me in my career. There have even been shows that we selected because we knew they would be popular, but I personally was not absolutely thrilled about them until I got into the rehearsal hall with them and found the magic. And magic is really what we do. It's what we weave here. So the story that's right in front of us right now, that's the most important show happening. I'm in charge of all of the art that's being done on all of our stages, even though very frequently there are guest directors and directors from our staff that actually stage the shows. But I see them all before they open. I very frequently give notes to the director makes adjustments based on my observation. So very frequently I have my hand in just about every show that's happening. Some of it is very structured in that the director is sort of a traffic cop at the very beginning. Where do the actors enter? Where do they exit? And generally, what do they do in between? That's the director's job at first. But the most important part of directing a play is relationships, because characters have relationships one to another. And so the director is going to that next level, trying to help the actors create relationships that relate to the story, but also relationships that the audience enjoys and gets a lot out of. Well, The Wizard of Oz is a gigantic show. And of course, it's a story that everyone knows from the movie. But it's about essentially a girl who is taken over the rainbow and who has a life-changing experience. She has frustrations in her life, but then when she goes over the rainbow and comes back, she sees her family and her friends and all the people she knows in a totally different way. And that happens to us as well. There are relationships that we have with our community and with our families that sometimes we take for granted, but sometimes a experience will change everything and renew our relationships with those people. And that's what The Wizard of Oz is all about. However, in producing the show, as you might imagine, it comes with a lot of special effects. So there's a lot of theater magic that happens in order to put on a big show like The Wizard of Oz. And so our technical team is working on those things right now and throughout the process. Ultimately, what's happening in the rehearsal hall and what's happening in our scene shop, costume shop, property shops, lighting and sound, they will come together on one weekend that we call technical rehearsals. And that's when the action of the show and the technical aspects of the show all come together. And those have to be woven together to create the big, beautiful experience that audiences will have when they show up here in December.
I'm Katie Underwood. I'm the associate producer here at the Springer, and then I'm the director for Springer, for The Wizard of Oz. Well, I grew up in Columbus as a theater academy kid for our summer Springer Theater Academy that we do. This was 25 years this summer, and I started summer of '98. I did all the summers until I graduated high school, went to college in the theater department here at CSU, and got hired on full-time staff afterward. I've had a few different positions here as a stage manager, the production stage manager, assistant to the artistic director, a tour manager for our national touring productions, and then most recently as the associate producer. It's a fun challenge. Every day is a little different, so there's no monotony. There's some nice comforting routine with every season kind of follows a similar schedule. A lot of the same actors, all of our favorite people always come back every few years. But each production is a little bit different, so there's always unique challenges, and so it never gets old. So as the director of this show, I'm in charge of blocking all the actors, telling them when to enter and exit, what props they use, coordinating with the scenic designer and lighting designer to describe what the scene should look like, how all of those pieces move, what the effects are, the timing of when scenery moves as it relates to the underscoring and the tracks, and working with the musical director and the choreographer to just sort of put the whole show together. Well, for this show in particular, we've been planning for so much longer. This show was originally going to be scheduled for last December, and we had to delay it because of things with COVID last year. And so we started this planning process and casting this show, selecting these actors so long ago, and it's been playing out in our minds each of the moments, all of the special effects tricks that we have to do, how we're going to accomplish those things in the time that the music allows us, over and over. And so when we first started rehearsal, having the actors actually say the words out loud in real life was just, it brought so much life and excitement to the show, rejuvenating us all over again. So far, my favorite scenes of the play are after Dorothy has met all 4 of her friends and they're all together. They each have such a unique energy, and they just personify those roles so well that watching them both in rehearsal and outside of rehearsal just be themselves and also be these characters has just been so fun to work with. That all the scenes, basically, so the second half of the show, once they're all together, are the most fun. I'd seen it as a kid every few years, but once you know what happens, you're like, oh, I've seen this, I know what happens. So it wasn't like a family tradition to watch it every year. I saw it when we did it here 11 years ago. Danielle, who is our Wicked Witch, she played the Wicked Witch then, so this is her second time in that role. Everyone else is brand new to the production. But watching her get to reprise it, but with all these new people, has just been fun because it's sort of familiar but also different. And for a lot of our audience, I know they've they've been around for a while and have seen that production. Our cast brings such a new excitement to the role that this classic that's multi-generational with a lot of familiarity will still feel like it has a new life to it. There are almost everyone in this show has been in another Springer show before. Most of them not the same one. Many of them were still meeting each other for the first time, but you'll recognize a lot of familiar faces and say, where do I know that girl from? And our Dorothy Mariella, she was our Maria in West Side Story. So it's been a few years, but lots of reprises from people. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces that you'll be trying to place. What show did I see them in? And they're all so excited to be back here at the Springer. Just come out with your family this holiday. Last Christmas was so weird for everyone, and this Christmas is, it's still a little bit different, but we're just getting back into gatherings and events, and live theater is really the personification of the holidays. People getting together with their family, their close family and their extended family and friends, and just experiencing a show together. And a show like Wizard of Oz just really brings people together. So just come on out this holiday season.
So since 2001, December of 2001, we've been doing a show most years called A Tuna Christmas. And A Tuna Christmas is set in a tiny, tiny Texas town called Tuna, Texas. And they have traditions there just like every community does. And one of the traditions is the annual yard display contest. And there's a lot of competition to win first prize in the annual yard display contest. But Tuna, Texas has a problem, and it's called the Christmas Phantom. Every year during the yard display contest, the Christmas Phantom shows up and vandalizes yard displays. So the local sheriff and really everyone is trying to hunt down the Christmas Phantom. But this has been going on for years and years and years in Tuna. So we get to meet all of these characters, 22 different characters, played by 2 actors. And so a lot of the fun of A Tuna Christmas is that it's a quick change comedy. An actor playing one character turns around and very quickly does a quick change with their costumes, wigs, everything, and is immediately back on stage. So there is as much drama going on backstage as there is on stage, because backstage there are these highly choreographed costume quick changes. And so Tuna Christmas is fun, it's a comedy. If you're really sick and tired of all the stress of Christmas and the shopping and the moving around and the traveling and everything that goes along with pulling off Christmas in your neighborhood and in your house, A Tuna Christmas is a great relief from that, because it's turmoil, it's Christmas turmoil pretty much from beginning to end. And it's great, great fun. The historic part of this theater is really a big part of our identity. And the Springer's history is closely related to the history of Columbus, Georgia. The Springer Opera House was founded by a man named Francis Joseph Springer, who was from Alsace, and so he spoke French. So he was really Francois Springer. He immigrated to Columbus, Georgia, because there were a number of other Alsatians already living here and already prospering. So his family was in the grocery business in a little town called Marlinheim. And when he showed up here, he knew a lot of people from his hometown. And he went to work for a man named Philip Gettinger, who had a grocery business on this site. And ultimately, Mr. Gettinger, who was also from Marlinheim, allowed Mr. Springer to marry his daughter Emily. So he married into another Alsatian family, and ultimately, when Mr. Gettinger passed away, the grocery business came to Francois. And so right after the Civil War, when Columbus's foundries and mills were burned to the ground, Francois decided that what Columbus needed was a European-style opera house to create a new identity for the city that had its roots in the arts. So he built this opera house in 1871, and since then, this building and the programs inside of it have been part of Columbus's identity. So history and the arts, this building reflects all of that for this community. And that's kind of why we're here. You can look all around in this downtown area at the businesses that are thriving here now. A lot of these businesses are here because the Springer Opera House is here. We are now the second largest theater audience in the state of Georgia, behind only the Alliance Theater in Atlanta. There's about 120,000 admissions a year come through this theater. And again, because we're storytellers, we are part of telling the story of Columbus and the Chattahoochee Valley. That's who we are. That's what we do. The only thing I would add is that excitement and relationships are part of what makes our communities healthy and allows us to tell the story. A lot of times we take our own stories for granted, but if people gather around tables at Thanksgiving, they're going to hear stories. And sometimes those stories are told over and over and over again every Thanksgiving. And what I would urge people to think about this Thanksgiving is that the stories they're hearing around the table reflect the identity of the family. Because ultimately, some of the people that tell those stories will one day pass away, but what will happen is those stories will continue to be told, because you can't be a part of your family without the stories that go with your family. So let's think of theater as a big family. When we show up and we tell a story on the stage, those stories relate to the lives of people. And that's what family is all about.